Find all values of theta if theta is in the interval from 0 to 360 and cosine theta equals negative square root of 2 over 2. What we need to do is we're going to use the chart, but we're going to use the chart backwards. Okay? So when you see the chart, you look at cosine and you look at square root of 2 over 2, and you're going backwards to find 45 degrees. Okay? You're using the chart kind of in the same way, but backwards to find the angle this time, because that's what we want. We want those values of angle. But 45 is not the answer. Okay? And that's what's tricky about this question. 45 degrees is the reference angle. Okay? So remember, we've always got those two things. We always got those two things that we have to do. Those two things are look at the chart and figure out what you can figure out from the chart. And that's where we got this. But also you have to think about what happens with the plus or minus. Okay, notice that this is a negative square root of 2 over 2. And so what you're going to have to do in this problem is say, okay, where would cosine be negative? Quadrant 2 and quadrant 3. Remember how the question said find all values? There are actually going to be two answers here. Okay? In the interval from 0 all the way around to 360, okay, there are two answers. You'd have a 45-degree reference angle in the second quadrant, and you'd have a 45-degree reference in the third quadrant. You've got two answers. Okay? So, look at this one. That 45-degree reference angle in the second quadrant. It's 45 degrees before you get to 180, right? 45 degrees before you get to 180 is 135 degrees. Okay? Or if you look at this one in the third quadrant, that's 45 degrees after 180. 45 degrees after 180 is what? 225? So those are your two answers. Okay? Find all values of theta in that interval such that we get negative square root of 2 over 2. Well, that's going to be 135 degrees, and 225 degrees. That's a big deal. Okay? That's a big deal. So I want to do another example of that, just because I think it's important. Let's do the same thing if it was sine theta equals 1/2. Okay? Let's just say sine theta 1/2, and we would have to be inside that interval from 0 to 360. Okay, bless you. So you do two steps. You do two things. You look at what the chart tells you. Okay? So the chart, you find sine, you find 1/2, and go backwards to find that angle. That 30 degrees is a reference angle. Okay, so that's part one. You find what you can find from the chart, but then you think about what the sign tells you. Okay, think about the plus and the minus. Notice how this was a plus. That's a positive 1/2. And so when you think about your xy axis, think about where those sine values or those y values are positive. Where is that?
Order 1 and 2.
1 and 2. And so what we would have is a 30-degree reference in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. So quadrant 1 is easy because quadrant 1 just is what it is, 30 degrees. Quadrant 2 is a little bit harder because you have to think about how far off the x-axis it is. Well, it's 30 degrees off, so that means this must be what? 150. You've got two answers here, 30 degrees and 150 degrees. That's a big time problem, okay? That you're going to see that a lot of times.